All right. So, as
Okay.
you already know from your experience last semester, clinical practice is really this collaborative experience with many different stakeholders having a role in the interns kind of semester. And so, obviously, we all are the TLRN clinical team, and we're kind of at MSU overseeing things. But on the ground, all of you are there, really giving us insight into what you're seeing with our clinical interns, so the cooperating teacher. Then we have our university mentor, who is the person coming out. You've met them already. For the most part, students have the same mentor. There were a few changes that needed to be made, so that it may have happened that you have a different mentor for your intern, but they will be coming out 4 times this semester to do 4 formal observations of the clinical intern. So we're kind of collecting data from them as well. And then the only other course that students take while they're in clinical two is their seminar course. And so then we have instructors, adjunct instructors, or professors that are teaching their seminar class. And just to kind of give you a little insight into what goes on in that class, it's a lot of reflection, self-reflection on their teaching, on what they're seeing in the classroom, kind of trying to connect that theory and practice a little bit more. But for clinical two in particular, there is a very heavy emphasis on preparing for jobs. So a lot of work on resumes, cover letters, how do you interview? We do a lot of work on that so that students are ready to go out and apply for jobs by the end of the semester.
Mhm.
All right. So, oh, I didn't know this slide was here. Sorry. Just explain exactly what I just did. But basically, you can see all that. All right, so we went over this already in clinical two. We really do want to see the students starting to take some ownership of content. And so again, a lot of times this happens. It happens differently in every classroom. Every student is different. Every cooperating teacher is different. But what we see most often is that students will start with one content area and really try to focus on that first before branching out to other ones as well. So that's up to you what that ends up being. But, starting to maybe by the end of this month or beginning of February, trying to identify that content area so that students can start to really do intentional observations of you teaching the content area so that they can start planning and thinking on how they may start to teach that. And then, obviously increasing as you go on in the semester, hoping that they're gradually assuming some more leadership and teaching. Co-teaching is definitely encouraged. We love co-teaching and we think it's a great practice for the students to learn. However, when they're doing a formal observation for their mentor, we ask that it's only the intern that's teaching, just so that they can, we don't want to be evaluating you as a teacher. We want to kind of see what the intern is capable of. So we definitely encourage it every day. However, for those formal observations, we will need it to be just the student.
Mhm.
So I'm sure all of you know the co-teaching models. I'm just going to kind of skim over this, but the slide
Mhm.
is here in case you want to refer back to it. But we really advocate for these last five. So stations, parallel, supplemental, alternative, or team teaching as you look towards other ways of involving the clinical intern in the teaching. And this is a nice way to kind of step up before they perhaps take over a lesson on their own or a content area to kind of give them this practice where you're there teaching with them to help support.
Mhm.
All right, so
Okay.
logistics. Are you doing this, Gina?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
I don't know the numbers of the
I don't know
slides.
either. Go ahead. You go
I
ahead.
think I'm going for it. Okay, give you a break. Okay, so for clinical two, it's 300 hours, 5 days a week, the entirety of the semester. The interns are allowed 5 absences. There are things that go on that, God forbid they're sick or a family thing or something where they may go over the 5 absences, which is why I always, we all do as a team, reiterate to them, please use them wisely. Okay. We also say to them, we don't want anyone going in sick and affecting everyone else. We will work it out if you have to go over the 5 absences, but they certainly should let their cooperating teacher know as soon as they know they're going to be out, and they should let me know as well. Okay. If they do go over the 5, for legitimate reasons, of course, we then would tell them that they would have to go later in May. Okay, a few days later, whatever that turns out to be. Um, As far as goals, prepare, teach, and assess a minimum of 4 lessons across varying content areas. So we want them to teach in all 4 subject areas. Or university mentors that come out and observe, they also like to see that. If they're dual cert, which happens actually in the fall, I think we have 1 or 2 now that are out there now in the spring, then they would need to have both the gen ed and special ed experience. Okay, but this is clinical too, so some of you may have some of our BMAT students, so we want them to have both experiences, and that could look a lot of different ways. That could be a push in, pull out, the co-teaching like we just talked about. So, if you have any questions on that, please let me know and we'll navigate that together. Um, they should participate in the observation and meeting with the cooperating teacher and the university mentor. So we encourage them to have as much communication with both of you. And also when you and the university mentor meet, and we tell the mentors the same thing. Um, and then, they should gradually start to, hopefully they'll start to take on more and more responsibility, um, as the semester progresses. And then hopefully, they can start to kind of spread their wings more. Um, as far as assessment, in anthology by the CT and the university mentor. So some of our interns have one cooperating teacher. Some of you, are the only one. Some have two. That happens a lot when it's what I described before, the special ed or gen ed experience with our dual cert students. Um, some have three, which is unusual, but we do have a few interns with 3 cooperating teachers. Um, anyway, so the cooperating teacher fills out 4 progress reports, observes, and then fills out the evaluation that gets submitted into anthology. If there's more than one of you, whether, whatever scenario that looks like, either co-teaching or push in, pull out, if more than one of you are observing the intern, you can split that to each. I had a situation this morning where an intern has 3 cooperating teachers, not that common, but they're going to decide how they're going to do that. So 4 evaluations in clinical 2 for the CT, for the cooperating teacher. Um, and then the university mentor also will do 4. So they'll have a total of 8. Um, they'll be observed 8 times. As far as final assessment, at the very end, it's a little different than clinical 1. You'll give like a summative report of their performance throughout clinical 2. That's at the end. That'll be in probably end of April, beginning of May. And then the clinical 2 final grade, you will submit a final grade for them. For seminar 2, we call it jokingly group therapy. It's just a great experience. They share, they discuss, they examine. And, basically it is a continuation, usually with the same instructor from seminar 1. But it's just a good opportunity for them to just exchange ideas with their peers. And our seminar instructors are fantastic, and they guide them in any issues they may have, or just as a good resource person to bounce things off of. They also reflect on their experiences that shape their work as a beginning teacher in the seminar 2 setting. And they, like Dr. Valetti said, they prepare for the job market, start to prepare resumes, cover letters, etc. So seminar 2 is really very valuable, and once again coincides with the clinical 2 experience. As far as assessments, assignments are assigned from the seminar instructor, and there's also a digital portfolio. So that's what seminar 2 looks like.
Yeah, so if you remember from seminar 1, clinical 1 last semester, your students may have asked to videotape a lesson. There was a big assignment that had them teaching a lesson and reflecting on it. So that is not in clinical two, they're not doing anything like that because we do have so many observations by you and our mentors. So instead, the focus is on creating this digital portfolio. So they'll likely be, taking pictures of artifacts of things that they've created. We do tell them not to take any pictures of children to put on their website, and we'll reiterate that with them, but really just kind of examples of work that showcase different guidelines that they're talking about in their digital portfolio. All right. I can talk about the assessments a little bit more. So Gina already touched upon this, but there are a total of 8 observations, 4 done by you and 4 done by the university mentor. One of these, and you'll see it on the observation schedule, we like to have at least one shared observation between the mentor and the CT. That allows, 2 different perspectives potentially on one lesson. It's a nice kind of communal atmosphere and talking about it. We talked about varying content areas and making sure that the student is supplying you with the lesson plan beforehand and getting your feedback on it, and then getting a chance to reflect with you and the mentor as well. A couple of things about the final assessments and final grade forms. So you'll notice if you haven't, I mean, you did these for clinical one as well. So you probably realized it's a numeric scale, this rubric for all the observations. And sometimes, students will see a 2.5, which in their head is a C, and they're like, oh my gosh, did I fail this observation? And we tell them over and over, don't worry about the number. Really read what the rubric is assessing and where you are on that scale. Because the numbers don't correlate to the grade. The final assessment and the final grade is really looking overall at the student's performance in clinical two, and then assigning a grade that you think is reflective of their work. I will say that the majority of students do end clinical two with an A or an A minus. If it's below that, we probably have already had conversations about the student and their performance, because we have found that, a B in terms of a clinical grade is a red flag for future principals to see. And not to say students don't get Bs, they absolutely do, but it's just something that probably would have already been known to the clinical team. It's not like a surprise at the end that you got a B. So I think that's important. We're going to have a meeting prior to grading as well, just to kind of go over some scenarios, but that's important to note as well, that that's kind of how it stands. Oh, this is so exactly that. So fours don't always equals A's. Just, I wish we could get rid of the numbers. We have to do it for
Yeah.
accreditation, but we really try to tell the students, focus on the feedback. Don't worry about the numbers. They always worry about the numbers, even though we say
Yes.
that 1,000 times.
Yeah.
But
That's true.
um, but yes, but if you do have a concern or you see things that you think, maybe that your intern may need a little more support, or you're worried that they won't meet the expectations, please, please, please reach out to us. Reach out to Gina and the university mentor. No issue is too small. We have so many support services that we can provide the student with, but we're not the ones, on the ground. So you're seeing a lot more than what we're seeing. So please reach out if you have any concerns about your intern's performance, so that we can make sure that we're providing you and the student with the proper supports.
And to Dr. Valetti, if I could just add, the
Yep.
sooner the better,
Yes.
because things are a lot, it's a lot easier to resolve things at the beginning than halfway through the semester or towards the end. So that's always appreciated.
Yes.
Most things are resolvable, thank God.
And Gina is an expert resolver.
Oh,
So,
you're very kind. Thank you.
yes.
Anyway, okay, attendance. So for clinical two, we had mentioned before 5 days, they're allowed 5 days, but as I tell them, we're nice people, think life happens. So if it's over 5 days, we will work with them to see how they can make up the time. So they attend full school days every day according to your school's calendar. That I just had 2 emails this morning. Somehow this is always confusing to the interns, which I understand. So they have to go by their district's calendar, not the Montclair State calendar. Okay, they should know it, but they do sometimes get a little mixed up, confused. So, regardless, if you're closed for snow day and MSU is not, they won't report in or vice versa. So they have to go by the district's calendar and they have to let you know, if for whatever reason they have to be out, they should, you should be their first point of contact and then me. Um, they submit an absence report to the university. There's a link that's on our Canvas page. It's in our handbook. So they actually go in, click on, they don't do this in clinical one, but they do it in clinical two, and they report their absences. And the clinical two student teaching ends May 8th. Okay, so that's always happy for them, and we have a celebration, and it's really nice. Acceptable reasons, illness, God forbid, family emergency, religious observance, bereavement, unacceptable interviews. This is always a sticky wicket, quite honestly. It depends, like if it's towards the very end and they're doing great, they should just talk to me and we'll determine if they should be out. But we say no only because we want them to have the full experience with you. Anyone that's looking to hire should understand that as well. Vacation, there really is no vacation during clinical too. So, if it's an extreme thing, a sibling getting married or something, well, then we look at it case by case with that. Um, if they have days left, this is a popular one. If they have days left and the semester is ending. So basically they need to go to May 8th. Okay. That is the last day. So that should be understood. They do not need to report holidays or, when Montclair State is closed, nothing like that. And once again, they should reach out to me if there's any problem and they need to be out.
Yes, and just to add, the snow may be coming, so snow days also do not need to be reported. That doesn't
Right,
count towards their 5. So in case your school is closed for a snow day, that doesn't count.
right.
And there may be, if there are professional development days that your district is holding, we always tell the student ask to see if they would allow you to attend. Those are always great opportunities for the student if possible. We understand if it's not possible, but again, those would not be counted as well in case they can't.
Right, right. Thank you, Priya. Yeah,
Yep.
that's important. And then basically the lesson plans, planning is the foundation for everything, a teacher does, as you all know so well. So we encourage them to plan and, as much as they can. Any questions on that? Once again, seminar, their mentor, myself, and of course you being right there with them, to help them in any way they can, that you
Yes,
can.
and so for the lesson plan, you may have seen this. We have a program lesson plan template, and those need to be used for the observations by the university mentor. So for the lessons that you are observing, they are welcome to use whatever lesson plan template they would like. I mean, if you have one that you love or one that your district uses, that's completely fine. But we just want you to be aware of the template that they've been learning with, and also that their mentor is going to be expecting them to fill out. So we know that it is very long, it is very exhaustive. This is on our cooperating teacher website, so you can take a look at it in detail. It has all the stuff that goes into a lesson plan, but it really, a lot of times teachers will look at this and say like, "Oh my goodness, you're never going to write this up and when you get out into the field." And we even tell them that. We say once you're ready to start in your own classroom, you're not going to need this exhaustive lesson plan template, because a lot of these things like thinking about accommodations and linking your resources and thinking about the procedure, that becomes second nature. So for all of you who are experts in the field, you don't need to write all of this down and think about it. But for our clinical interns who are just, starting this process, we want to kind of keep them accountable so that by the end of clinical 2, we really do feel like this will become second nature to them. So this is the template. They have all been taught this template. If they tell you they haven't, you can say, "I went to a meeting and they said you had," or send them to me, because they all have had to write lesson plans with this in their courses. And again, this is the one that they'll be using with their mentors. We're actually having a mentor meeting next week as well to just reiterate that this is the template that should be used to allow for consistency amongst the observations. For you, you can choose to have your students use this lesson plan if you think it's easier that they just always use this lesson plan template. It's more than willing, you know, you're more than willing to use it. However, if you want to use a different one, we want to give you that freedom. So just know that this is there and this is what they've been taught and what they'll be doing with their mentor. But with all of you, your 4 lesson plans can be a different format if you'd like. All right, Gina, subbing.
Okay, subbing. This is always a little bit sometimes needs clarity during the semester. So the big picture is they all have their sub licenses. They need their sub license to start the clinical year. That's where it gets a little bit confusing. So they really should not be used as substitutes. What we do want to do though is we always want to help out our partner districts wherever we could. During COVID, that was really something that was happening a lot with everyone being out, and our interns just stepped in a variety of ways. However, we will allow it in a rare emergency situation. So what we tell our interns is, if there's an emergency and you're needed to sub, obviously you need to be on the payroll as a sub. They need to get paid, but they need to contact me first, okay? And once again, it would be a rare instance, okay? A true emergency. Because we want them, obviously to be in the classroom and getting the most experience from clinical too. If there are typically 2 licensed teachers in a room, in a co-taught classroom, the intern should not replace a licensed teacher. And like Dr. Valetti said before, even though they have their sub-license, they cannot be in a classroom alone due to legal reasons. As far as an emergency situation, if just have them call me and we'll assess the situation. But we do want to help, but we don't, it would have to be really, not a common scenario. Okay, and then the non-subbing scenarios, the CT calls out sick and a sub is assigned to the room. The intern is asked to run the class and the sub is present. This is really a typical intern activity. That's not what we consider subbing, so they wouldn't be paid as a sub for that. And a lot of times there are aides or paraprofessionals who monitor the hallways. Um, so the intern is asked to help another aide supervise. That also is an intern activity, not a subbing activity. So I see something in the chat from Ms. Galloway. I was out on Friday and had a sub. Oops, I just lost that. I'm sorry. Let's
Yes,
see.
I was out on Friday and had a sub, so I told my intern to assist the sub and co-teach.
That's perfect. That's
Yes, that's
fine.
great.
Totally fine.
Yeah,
So if there's, yeah,
what we're saying is that, if you were sick, we can't you can't hire the intern as the sub to run the room. I mean, they can pretty much be teaching because they obviously hopefully know the students really well by now, but they're not getting paid to be
right,
doing that work. Yeah.
right, right. Yeah, that's
All
a
right.
good question. Okay, do you want
All
me to
right,
take
now
it,
the good
Bree?
stuff, the honorariums. Yeah. Do you want to?
Money, money, money. Okay, I like talking about money. Okay, so the honorarium form will be sent out from the clinical email during your clinical 2 semester. You'll be paid at the end of clinical 2. I don't have an exact date, but I'm assuming sometime mid-May, maybe a little bit later than that.
Mhm.
Um, so cooperating teachers receive a $550 honorarium for the entire year. Now it's prorated if there's multiple CTs. So fall clinical 1 and spring clinical 2, a combined honorarium check will be issued in May, June. For spring clinical 1 and fall clinical 2, that combined check will be issued in January, February. I am going to be very honest. I am not the guru of honorariums. I don't process them. So if there's any questions, please feel free to contact clinical internships at montclair.edu and someone will get back to you. My colleague, Nate Cottrell, he is he's very informative on all this. So if I have if there's a question or whatever, he'll be happy to help you. But that is how the honorariums work. Any questions on that?
Oops, sorry.
Okay. Oh, okay. So our Montclair State University Network for Educational Renewal, MSU NER. That is our network of partner schools. I don't know the exact number now, but I know we probably have close to 40 partners where we send our requests for clinical 1 and 2 placements to. So, we have a lot of deep connections. Some districts have been with us. I'm with the college 13 years, and some of them have been with us that long. They've grown, we've added. Um, so if you are interested in becoming a clinical faculty member, here is the person that you would contact. One of my colleagues, Kristen Armato. I believe, I don't know her exact title. I believe she's the data specialist, but there are a lot of perks on campus, some PD opportunities. There's courses you can take that you would take to become clinical faculty. I believe there's mentoring and coaching courses. It's a course sequence of 3 courses, but it really is beneficial to become clinical faculty. If you go on the www.msuner.org website, it will give you those perks. And if you have any questions, please reach out to Kristen Armato.
All right. And finally, I know we're cutting it close here and I want to see if there's any questions, but this is just the observation schedule for all of you. Again, this is linked on the CT website. But these are meant to be guidelines. It's flexible. Obviously, adjust this as you see fit to your own school calendar and also to the readiness of your clinical intern. But this is kind of just meant to map out the semester and give you an idea about, what to pace them all out so that we're not at the end and trying to do all 8 observations at once. And you'll notice this is what I was referring to earlier, that we do like to see one collaborative observation. The actual form for that observation, as you'll note down here, is entered by the mentor. So for this observation, you would be observing and you would be providing narrative feedback during the conference, but the actual form that's going to be filled out and submitted to Anthology, that will be done by the university mentor, which is why you see, your name on 4 others over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then obviously the finals. All right, and we linked that website again there for you. If you could please bookmark that, it has the assessments, the schedule, the handbook, the lesson plan template, anything that you need is on that website and has been updated for this semester. So hopefully you find that helpful to have it all in one place. All right, questions. I know we're running it close to 5 o'clock, but thank you all. I'm going to